few more participants, but I think we'll get started. Welcome to the Regional Resilience Series presentations. This is part 2, Adapting, Session 2. Today's topic is focused on health and safety, and joining us is Mr. Jeff Reynolds, who currently serves as the Director of Stakeholder Relations with the Government of Alberta's Pandemic Response Planning Team. Some of you may have joined us for our part 1 of this series, the Navigating Resources and Network sessions, which was geared to delivering information directly related to government relief programs as they were evolving and changing so quickly. Part 2 is focused on empowering business, industry, and municipalities to adapt as needed. Now, before I go on, in the past, I have had some pretty serious sound difficulties. So if you cannot hear me, please let me know. Otherwise, I will just continue. My name is Kimberly Worthington, and I represent an organization called Central Alberta Economic Partnership, locally known as CAPE. Representatives from Community Futures, Access Prosperity, the Central Alberta Regional Innovation Network, and the City of Red Deer have come together to develop this series to give the businesses of the region practical tools to adapt. As we work our way through phase 2 of the reopening of the Alberta economy, businesses are faced with new opportunities and many challenges. This segment of the Regional Resilience Series is focused on providing tools and resources, as well as information to assist in finding solutions related to human resources, health and safety, and digital transformation. In June, Peninsula spoke about HR, and today's session is focused on health and safety, starting off with Jeff. Thank you to those who submitted your questions in advance during your registration. This is a great tool we have begun to utilize so that we can tap into our experts to deliver the information that you really need. We will go through those questions, and you are strongly encouraged to ask other questions as active engagement provides insights others may not have. You can guarantee that if you have a question, others have it too, or some may not have thought about it. So please don't be shy and raise your hand. The business card exchange will follow the Q&A, where we will open the floor to encourage dialogue between each other. This is a new component to our Regional Resilience series, and is to act as a networking session. We all know that networking is critical to business growth, improvement, and success. We would like to see you share your ideas, cross-industry, and promote other ideas. Please provide your contact information in the chat function. So just a reminder, Zoom is a public platform, and this is a live event being recorded. The organizers do not have control over the links that may be posted, participants to the group chat, so please be mindful as to what is shared. We will send out a link afterwards. Also, I'd like to remind you that this is not a political platform at all. It's an information sharing platform. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Jeff Reynolds. Jeff brings both private and public sector experience and perspective to all assignments. He has served in both senior and executive manager roles in several Government of Alberta departments, mainly in natural resources and emergency management contexts. He has received a post-secondary and graduate education from several Alberta institutions and postgraduate executive education from Royal Roads and Queen's Universities. He's an active Rotarian. Public and community service play a very large role in Jeff's professional and personal life. Jeff's involvement in the province's pandemic response began with the declaration of the state of public health emergency when he was appointed incident commander of the Provincial Operations Center for the first few weeks. He then created the Stakeholder Relations and the Biz Connect programs, and now he is working on a wide variety He's working with a wide variety of Albertans as we move through the relaunch phases of this unprecedented experience. So Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a real pleasure to have you. We'll let you switch over the screen and start your presentation.
Okay, thanks very much, Kimberly. Can you still hear me?
I can.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm going to try to share the screen here. Okay, how am I doing so far? Can you see kind of a title page looking screen?
I see a white screen. Just bear with us for a second.
Okay.
Yeah, and when I open up my video, there we go.
Okay,
Perfect.
so it should say relaunch supports.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you very much, and I apologize for the awkwardness of my technical experience. So, good morning, everyone. Thanks very much for the opportunity to speak with you this morning. What I'd like to do is kind of provide a brief overview of the relaunch supports that are available to you as both municipalities, as private enterprise, as individual Albertans related to the province's COVID-19 response. It's kind of a wave-top summary. Do want to entertain questions as we go through, and I think Kimberly would like to, kind of have a more formal Q&A at the end, which is fine. But I would like to provide kind of an overview, and if something's not clear, I would be happy to speak to those as we go through. So what we're in right now is Premier Kenney has announced stage 2, which is represents an increased kind of opening of the economy, of society, based on some very specific targets that Dr. Dina Hinshaw and the staff at both Alberta Health and Alberta Health Services have been communicating very frequently. And that's based on the number of cases detected, the number of hospitalizations related to COVID-19, and the capacity of intensive care units. So since Albertans have been doing such a good job in terms of taking adherence and taking to heed the direction for public safety, for hygiene, for physical distancing, we have been able to move to what has been a stage 2, which is an opening economy. There has not been any indication of when stage 3 might be coming about, and that's kind of based on Premier Kenney and Dr. Hinshaw's press conference yesterday afternoon. But with stage 2, some of the guidance that came out of particular interest to municipalities mainly was guidance for public transit systems, and we were able to consult with the Canadian Association of Urban Transit Western Division on that, and I believe everybody in Southern Alberta who's got a public transit system as part of that organization. So that's posted. An expanding of allowable kind of maximum contributions for indoor social gatherings to 50, increasing to 200 people maximum for outdoor seated events, and there's the cap for churches, for places of worship, restaurants, cafes, etc., has been reduced, or actually eliminated, provided that physical distancing, personal protective equipment is provided as is required, and all the hygiene stuff that is provided, and the information and background I'll get to in a bit. But provided you're doing all the right things, we're trying to be as permissive as possible for enterprise and government and public areas in the province. Major activities that are still restricted include entertainment festivals and major events, nightclubs, and hookah lounges that are for anything other than restaurant-based activities. The key information source for all of this information is the BizConnect website, and I definitely encourage you strongly to check it out. There's the website. It's got a complete listing of all the Chief Medical Officer of Health orders, which are the compliance piece of this, as well as relaunch guidance for a wide variety of sectors, from pretty much from soup to nuts. And so, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'd like to provide kind of a wave-top summary of what those are. Really important to this is general relaunch guidance, and there's kind of just about a 25-page manual on that. And what it does is it breaks down the province's approach to COVID-19 management, as well as provide general parameters for what enterprises and businesses community halls, all those things need to do to operate safely within within a COVID-19 environment. These documents provide a well-rounded view of what they need to open safely, and provides provides a practical guide to support operators across various settings and services to help reduce the spread of COVID-19. All operators should consider the guidance in this document when preparing the space for attendees. Considering we're here in July 14th, we're pretty much a month into stage 2. A lot of firms have taken these to heart and have really incorporated them into their safe operating practices. Even including, from my experience, I'm based in Edmonton, but some enterprises opened with stage 2 and then found themselves closing again because they weren't comfortable to operate in that current environment, and that is totally okay. That's encouraged. We're providing general guidance and awareness, but it is up to individual operators and entities to decide how they want to operate. So in addition to the general relaunch, there's specific information related to infection and prevention control, a bunch of the occupational health and resources available. I've still got flushing water systems on there. That refers to entities and buildings that had been closed for some time due to COVID and then had to open up. So we had to, they're kind of a sanitary expectations on water systems. There's provisions for masks, so the non-medical piece. We're in the second wave of masks for all Albertans right now. You've probably seen on your local news provider or even on some of the press conferences that you can go to McDonald's, Tim Hortons, A&W's and get 8 packs of masks for your household while supplies last. As well, there's a wide selection of posters available for businesses in terms of what you can do. And when I say businesses, that's sort of any place that the public can go. This would include public municipality buildings. This would include fire halls with a public desk. This would include, city hall, all of those kind of things. Anywhere where the public can enter needs to provide a standard of care. And as well, all the posters and all the materials that we've got available are available in 13 languages in addition to English. In particular reference to financial supports, and I understand your previous segment on this COVID topic was related to that. And maybe just in summary, I can mention that the government of Alberta is committing up to $200 million in funding for eligible small and medium-sized enterprises and nonprofits to access up to $5,000 to offset a portion of the relaunch costs. These funds can be used for implementing measures to implement the risk of virus transmission, such as physical barriers, PPE, and disinfecting supplies, as well as rent, employee wages, or replacing inventory. The Alberta government is planning further measures, including legislation to ensure commercial tenants will not face rent increases or be evicted for non-payment of rent due to the COVID-19 public health emergency. These are available along with links to other programs that are offered by the GOA to assist with business reopening. Related to personal protective equipment, business owners should conduct hazard assessments to identify existing and potential hazards related to COVID-19. It's very enterprise specific and depending on your particular operating experience. Mainly where elimination of hazards is not possible or reasonable, then PPE comes in. I mentioned that the government is currently providing free masks to Albertans through kind of the infrastructure and kind of logistical system that we've got in place through fast food restaurants, but there are also provisions that you can check out on the website related to getting masks to more remote communities. So I mentioned that there's a spate of information for personal protective equipment on the Alberta BizConnect website, as well as now that the supply chains are up and running, one of the other kind of activities that we track here within the Provincial Operations Center and the provincial government is the status of provincial critical infrastructure, and that includes supply chains. Now we are tracking all supply chain activity within the province as green, basically no impediments that we need to manage. So that's why the government has backed away from being more dynamic in the larger PPE space, and the second wave of masks provided will probably be our last intervention on this phase of COVID. There's a couple other resources available on the sites: the Rapid Response Platform Canada, ATB Nexus, and the Federal Supply Hub. I believe what somebody had a question potentially that we can speak to in a bit, but in terms of if there are entities that are suppliers of personal protective equipment that would look to, look to provide those services to the wider market, if you Google Alberta bits and pieces, you'll come up with a kind of unfortunately an awkward link. That's why I'm saying just to Google it. That provides resources that you can submit information on what you're offering, what your firm does, that will be given consideration to the wider community throughout Alberta. Again, I mentioned the BizConnect website is the key resource for it. It's got templates for business, guidance documents, as well as the current direction from the Chief Medical Officer of Health. As well, there's an email address, bizconnect@gov.ab.ca, that exists for those matters that fall between the cup and the lip. Things that despite best intentions of us here in Edmonton trying to answer every possible question, we can't think of anything. So we've established this the email address for things that still require clarity. We're pretty much responding really, really rapidly right now. We've sort of dealt with the mass, bulk of it, but we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And the feedback that you do provide through the BizConnect email address does impact future guidance. If there's something that's not clear, you can submit it that way, and we do update the website on a daily basis, and sometimes even more daily. So, or more than once daily. That's why I say it's the best choice or best option for information, because it's not something that sits fallow. That's basically a summary of what I wanted to talk about. Over the 3-4 months that we've been managing the COVID-19, we've been trying to get everything out available to the public so they can get the information at their leisure. We've got a pretty comprehensive data set up and ready, and willing or able to support you in your pursuits. But again, I say if there are still questions that linger, feel free to drop a line to the bizconnect@gov.ab.ca, or I've also put my email address up there, and I would be more than willing to help connect you to the information you need. And with that, maybe I'll hand it back to you, Kimberly, and we can get some questions going.
Sure. Thanks so much, Jeff. People did submit their questions. Bear with me here. People submitted some questions when they registered for the session. So the first question is, what is the biggest misconception you're seeing about reopening as you work with Alberta businesses?
That's a great question, and I'm and I'm kind of thankful for it, because it was it's been an interesting progression. When we first started this whole thing, it started COVID management started with the declaration of what was essential and non-essential services. And I had mentioned previously in my talk about critical infrastructure, defined as an essential service. And the misconception is in terms of people wanting to have their very, very individual specific entity recognized as essential or not. We try to be as general and as helpful as possible without getting into the weeds. So in terms of, like, we would get some emails, I want to be personally declared as an essential service, without ignoring or without paying attention to the wider context. So that was a little challenging at the get-go. Another misconception is that government does not provide specific approval of relaunch plans or how they're operating. We've tried to be sufficiently comprehensive related to things like physical distancing, what's required with sanitization and hand sanitizer, all of those kind of things, so businesses could customize to their own specific operations. It's if I can just share an observation, when in times are good, everybody, and I totally get this and I support that business wants to be left free to do what they want to do. They know their business best. They want to be able to create, to innovate, and whatnot. And we tried to preserve that ethos with the guidance, and that here's the general expectation, here's the base things that you have to accomplish to open safely, but we're not going to get overly prescriptive. Sorry if that was kind of too wordy, but does that answer the question even?
I believe so.
Okay.
Are there any follow-up comments on the answer to that question? You can post them in the chat room. And just being cognizant of time here, I think while people are posing follow-ups to that, if they if they do that, I'm going to move on, Jeff.
Oh, you bet.
The next question is, do you have a sense of when we can expect testing in pharmacies for asymptomatic cases? Now, this is an interesting question because I walked into a pharmacy yesterday in Sylvan Lake and they were actually testing. So my son and I did get tested and it was really simple. A little bit of paperwork that you have to wait to have done, but the testing overall took 2 minutes.
That's great to hear. And yes, as you quite properly note, pharmacies right now are providing testing services for asymptomatic cases. What we don't have right now is a list of all those pharmacies participating. And the reason, and so what we've been saying is please consult your local pharmacy to see what they're doing. And the rationale behind that is the pharmacies themselves are doing the capacity and demand management on those things. If the government were to come out with this list of these are all the pharmacies, what we were concerned about is just a deluge of activity into each of the pharmacies when they're not ready. So in order to get them up to speed slowly, that's why we're saying please contact your pharmacy and see what they're doing. And as they get more comfortable and confident, we could move to a time when we publish kind of a list, but we're not there quite yet. But pharmacies are providing testing for asymptomatic right now.
So I spoke a bit with the pharmacist yesterday while we were going through the process, and there are 2 pharmacies in Sylvan Lake that are providing that asymptomatic testing. And she said that they were, between the 2 of them, they were testing approximately 12 people a day. So that definitely adds to their workload.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that, Jeff. As new information is clarified, how can businesses source it on Alberta Biz Connect? I think you probably touched on this fairly decently in your presentation, but could you reiterate, please?
Oh, sure. We're trying to get that as the main channel for information. So we update that, sometimes several times a day, depending on, the information coming out. There's quite a long and technical approval process for some of the guidance stuff. So it does take a while. But then all of a sudden we might have 3 or 4 different pieces of guidance that are ready to go, and so we'll update the site a couple times a day. But that's the place to go for it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. The main question is for November, normal flu season plus COVID-19. Are we preparing for partial closure of some business units, a possible resumption of the EOC when flu season comes into effect? Has there been discussions at the provincial level in regards to actions that might need to be taken in order to mitigate risk?
Yes, it's something that we're tracking very closely. Whether there's a second wave, we have to be mindful of it. We look to our friends and colleagues to the south and see what they're going through. And in related to the stand-up of emergency operations centers, we're always at the ready to do that. Whether it's related to COVID or flooding or fire, that's something that's just built into the provincial emergency management system. And so it is on our radar, and we do have the resources ready to go. The actual PRPT that I work with right now, we're in the process of standing down. So the PRPT will actually go lights out at the end of July. But should we need to stand up again in a moment's notice, we are ready, willing, and able to do so.
Okay, great to hear. Thank you. The next question is about reporting a business that opens without proper PPE in place, and who should we report it to if we should report it?
That's an occupational health and safety issue. So in terms of kind of a reporting, I don't, in terms of how the municipality wants to run it, it's up to them. But from a provincial perspective, it's actually not an Alberta Health or an AHS issue for us now. It's occupational health and safety, because in terms of maintaining a safe workspace for employees and customers, that's where the that's where the accountability lies. So if there are concerns, I would suggest you consult with OH&S on that.
Okay, thanks for that. And just to follow up, what are the OH&S requirements for businesses as far as policies and procedures for COVID relaunch?
As I said before, on the relaunch guidance, that provides a summary of what needs to be done from an OH&S perspective.
Okay.
And I'll be honest, I'm a little hesitant to get into the details of it, because it's better if you look at the specific references that we've got there and apply that to your own situation.
Okay. Do you have any insights in terms of, obviously there's been a lot of standards for cleaning and disinfecting that have changed. how do we know as customers that those standards are being met? And as a business, how can we best convey that to our customers?
As I mentioned on the website, there's a whole bunch of printed material that's available, and there's one that a lot of businesses that I see use. It's just called like Open for Business and Being Safe, and these are the things that we're taking. And it references physical distancing, hygiene, all of those kind of things, and it lists it out quite clearly. Provided you use a combination of the relaunch guidance and kind of the printed materials that are available. Those are some of the assurance mechanisms that businesses can use to convey to their customers that they're doing the right thing.
Okay, so it might be a good idea for businesses to have some of that information available so that customers can cross-check.
Yeah, and it's and there's the branding aspect of it, and some of the printed materials are available just for printing off that on the website that businesses can use. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Jeff. Now we have a question about a tourism-related question, and how does the government see balancing the need for inter-Canadian or even regional tourism to restart, and at the same time taking COVID-19 precautions? Now, I know it's been splashed all over the news, but Sylvan Lake, for example, is a tourism destination. And people really enjoy coming to the beach. And so there's been lots of indications that there's some challenges with social distancing there. And we're wondering, do you have any suggestions that might help municipalities mitigate some of those challenges and still be open for business?
The overarching requirement still relates to physical distancing.
Yeah.
And in terms of providing guidance to tourists, to customers coming in to help them do that, that's about the best we can do. Non-essential travel is still not recommended at this point, and that would be more of a stage 3 thing. But you see, like Travel Alberta, frankly, branding the heck out of stay in the province and come. And I know just west of you in David Thompson country, that's a huge, tremendous hub. In addition to Sylvan Lake, but the physical distancing requirements, personal hygiene still need to be maintained. But it's a fine balance between being economically permissive and COVID-19 restrictive. So I don't have any like hard and fast answers for you. I apologize, but it's something that we're looking for best efforts on, and that's what the expectation would be.
Yeah, sure. No, and I can appreciate that. I figured as much, as I'm sure others did figure as much as well. I wonder if it would be useful, and maybe it's out there already, best practices aside from the social distancing and how to mitigate potential transaction of the infection. I was out in David Thompson country this weekend, and some of the trails were really packed. So I see it as a great opportunity to explore those less known trails and still be able to social distance yet enjoy the great outdoors that we have here. Okay, we are, so an Alberta-based company is making PPE and are looking for ways to connect to other Alberta businesses on the supply of masks, gowns, and scrubs. They're registered on ATB Nexus and looking for other ways to connect.
Yeah, I had mentioned there's another website called Alberta Bits and Pieces, and that's run by the Alberta Emergency Management Agency, and they're sort of the core hub for all hazards. Say if it wasn't COVID-19, if we were dealing with widespread forest fires or flooding, they maintain a website that kind of connect suppliers and people who need PPE with that. So I would just if you could just Google Alberta Bits and Pieces, and then you can see the site there, and that's managed by staff directly, and there's a lot of activity going on there, so that's a good resource.
Okay, that's great. We also have an extensive list on CAPE's website, so www.capealberta.com. So you can go there onto our COVID page and take a look. You can also provide us with the information and we will update that accordingly. I also know that there's a number, or at least a number of sources at the federal level that you can get put on as well. So for follow-up on that question, please connect with me directly and we'll get you set up. So Jeff, that's the end of the questions that have been submitted. Are there any other questions from the participants and the audience that you would like to see what Jeff can, what information Jeff can provide you with? I'll just monitor the chat room for a minute.
And after we're done the presentation here, I'll send a copy of the presentation to Kimberly, and she can distribute. And if you want to get a copy of that, you'll have a copy for your use.
Thanks, Jeff. That's much appreciated. Okay, so seeing no questions, and if some come in afterwards, Jeff, I'll forward them to you, and then we can disseminate it to the group as well, if that's all right.
Yeah, you bet. Sounds good.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. It was a pleasure to meet you, and we look forward to seeing, seeing what comes about in the near and the far future. Take care. All the best.
Okay, thanks very much. Good speaking with you.
Okay. So something new that we have added to these sessions is the business card exchange. We're all missing our networking opportunities in person. And so we thought this was a great venue to be able to have that networking available inter-industry and inter-business. So please share your information, your business card information in the chat room. And if you have any comments or questions in regards to health and safety or just general, please feel free to speak up right now. Okay, seeing none. I have a question for you, and perhaps you can respond in the chat room or unmute yourself. Is having a virtual networking session, would it be useful for you to share information with each other? Is this something you would like to see us continue? We will continue it for this portion of the series. However, we really want to be relevant to our businesses, industry, and municipalities. So please let us know your thoughts. So on that, we will also be following up with a quick survey. It takes about 2 minutes to complete. And again, it provides us with the information that we need. It allows you to help us help you. So please spend a few minutes to do so and take it, and we will evaluate the information, and it's all confidential. We'll evaluate it shortly thereafterwards. Okay, I see that some of our team are putting their contact information in the chat room. Thank you for that. Donna Allard, thank you for sharing that information. Donna is a great resource and conduit into the government of Alberta. She worked with Bree Fitzpatrick from the city of Red Deer to bring us Jeff Reynolds today. So thank you for that as well. Manpower is on the line. Thank you. So our next session will be on August 18th at 10 a.m. and it will be themed digital transformation. We'll have Poeta on the line, and they're very eager to talk to you about some efficiencies that you can create with digital transformation, and how you can be supported through that transition. So hearing no other questions and comments, it is 9:36, and I think we'll close it off there. Thank you again, everybody, for participating. It's been a great session and lovely to see you all. Take care.